There's a lot of opportunity as to combining those and understanding the combined value of them.
In 2024, I think it's going to be a better year than this year. There'll be political ad spend. I think there's like a big sporting event, maybe the Olympics. So like there'll be more dollars in the marketplace. So publishers just need to make sure that they're prepared to capture those dollars.
So definitely in 2023, with all these publishers that we're speaking to, with all these publishers that we are kind of helping, this is an interesting shift in mindset.
Some of the things they should definitely focus on in 2024 is, making sure they have the right SSPs in their demand stack, making sure that they have the right analytics to make sure they're understanding, with each individual partner, do they have the right mix? Are they calling the right bidders? They should definitely focus on, having an ID solution in place to make sure that with the cookieless inventory, they can monetize that effectively or as effective as possible.
So if it hasn't already happened, investing in the integration of identity solutions, the probabilistic ones to capture right now what is possible to do there on the US market and other ones where it is possible to do it. Utilizing, if available, the authenticated information to integrate all of these ID vendors or the big ones that can turn those email addresses into audience signals to then really already have a base stack that performs well, which can now be measured on iOS to then also be available and working for the Android inventory. Then at the same time, from a demand perspective, we are quite often just looking at a pre-bid advertising stack with display. And then separately, we are looking at video. Separately, we are looking at affiliate. There's a lot of opportunity as to combining those and understanding the combined value of them. So for what type of user, on what kind of article, will I be going better with a click-to-play video versus autoplay video versus a banner? What is the impact on the user experience? How likely are they to click on the video? How likely are they to watch the video? What is the impact on the user engagement?
The first thing I would do is I would look at my ad stack properly and really evaluate, how am I selling my inventory? Am I utilizing the latest technologies? Am I looking at the right data? Am I looking at everything normalized in one place? And do I have the infrastructure to know what's going on at very granular level if I want to, or very top level for me to make a quick decisions, but almost 100% accurate data in front of me and as quickly as possible. The second course of action, then I would start taking that data, that capabilities, that stack information, and start working on my demand path optimization. Start thinking about how can I make sure that I'm utilizing the power of AI or power of machine learning in real time to optimize everything I have.
And then the other part is, of course, as advertising spend is down and might not be recovering in 2024, working towards how can we achieve more efficiency overall. And also, do we have opportunities to further improve revenue without hurting long-term goals? And if so, what would allow us to achieve those faster? So quite often publishers have the idea, okay, actually, we would like to do all of these 20 things, but we just don't have the resources available to do that. So what can be done? What technology can be used? What processes can be used to speed up all of this testing, all of those integrations to get to results faster with the same amount of people?
Publishers need to leverage the economies of scale that they can get from using AI so that they can focus on generating revenue directly with their advertisers, directly with their agencies. So they need to automate the processes that they can, that human beings, it would take them, 100 times longer to do, or they can't even do it. Like physically, it's impossible. So yeah, our machine learning is a big part of everything we do. It's a big part of what we do on the traffic shaping side too, identifying the high valued users in real time, looking at which users the programmatic buyers are more interested in, and then segmenting that. So really helping publishers to segment their inventory, and sometimes even to serve the direct sales campaigns to the low valued programmatic users, so that you reserve the high valued inventory for the programmatic demand partners. So I think we call that supply shaping, basically. So these are some of the things that I think publishers should be looking at. They should be using machine learning for dynamic flooring. They should be using machine learning for traffic shaping, AI, and in any way to automate the processes that they can to save time, to save money, to drive more revenue.
A lot of understanding also happens in the sense of understanding, okay, this is the supply, this is the different types of demand available. So on one side, we have like a CPM demand, the banner, display, video, and otherwise. But then I also have like CPA demand and I have CPC demand, but they are not really yet properly competing with each other. I do see there an opportunity coming up and becoming stronger and stronger for properly mediating between different revenue sources, Prebid being one big one. But when actually using the publisher's data to better understand, okay, right now it would be better to use the CPA campaign and the publisher's doing the conversion from CPA to CPM rather than some external party that has only a fraction of the data available and could only do it with a higher margin of error. And the higher the margin of error is, the more efficiency goes away and the less the publisher earns in the end, and also the less efficient those campaigns are, hence resulting in lower ad spend. So for me, the core use cases on the monetization side, if we look at it from the publisher's perspective, in three categories. On one side, to accurately decide as to where do we put, for example, the bottom floor price, as well as understanding and predicting what is the value of that inventory to inform the buy side as to what they likely have to bid in order to win. We look at it from a perspective of, hey, we have a really good understanding of that user's value, either from pre-bid visits or because he was already in the page and we already got like bid level information from a previous auction. The uplift that can be generated by informing the buy side of, hey, this is the value of that inventory, this is what others are bidding on that inventory, can have significant double-digit increases in the CPMs. In other words, the machine learning, which is happening on the buy side, determining the buying price, while it might not consider the floor price as the minimum, it is considering the floor price as an information factor into how much they are bidding. So if, as a publisher, we can transmit more accurate information as to what they need to bid consistently, so that looking at historic information, they see, okay, this piece of information for that domain is very accurate, very good. It gives me a very good indication as to what I need to buy at what price. Then they actually start using that information, and from a publisher's perspective, we can basically influence how much they are bidding. But it's not really coming from squeezing out more revenue. It's more coming from being more transparent and creating a more efficient trading between the two parties. I think the other part is really about having an advertising stack that to some level of degree understands the user's behavior, so that we can dynamically make the decision as to what bidders do we include in that auction, overall to increase efficiency there, which then increases the advertising spend because it looks of higher quality to the buy side and to the middleman in between. But then also understanding as to, okay, this user on this page is only going to be for a very short amount of time. So we have these kind of dynamics where if we understand to some degree how long will the user be there, or how will the user be scrolling the page, and otherwise to really help optimize towards getting those impressions out to the user, getting the attention of that user on those impressions, and then also delivering them to the fulfillment of the KPIs of the advertiser, what they are looking for.
Over the course of 2023, we've spoken to a number of premium publishers, some MFA arbitrage publishers, and I think one of the big concerns that we've heard is that revenue has decreased a little bit, especially in the first quarters of the year. They saw demand was softer, and the publishers felt like they needed to do more optimizations to test more SSPs. They saw consolidation in the industry with SSPs like Yahoo shutting down their services. They also saw reseller SSPs perform better than direct SSPs for various reasons, and we still think that those paths will continue to exist in 2024. A lot of the publishers are definitely worried about the cookie deprecation.
So it's going to be interesting to see in 2024. The publishers, in my opinion, should be focusing and utilizing their first-party data a bit more, and finding the ways and means that how can they actually expand it, maybe create lookalike audiences and go to market with a bit more kind of scientific approach. The
biggest development is the entire development of the privacy sandbox. It is still to this day constantly changing. We do have a pretty good idea on how it will be working and the certain effects it probably will have on the industry, but there's still so many changes happening that it is a bit unknown. So with the current state of identity solutions, and while it is still possible legal-wise and otherwise within the markets where right now those probabilistic solutions are working, it makes sense to put those in place in those markets. It's already worth it right now because they drive somewhere north of 15% uplift on iOS inventory in terms of CPMs, and the same has a probability to happen on Chrome, though some of it of course will be covered by the Topics API, hence reducing it probably a bit, but those could stop working or stop being legal at any point in time. For some of them there's already the question on if or to what degree is this legal. Beyond that, there's of course the possibility that for all the publishers that already have authenticated traffic, it makes a lot of sense to start working with identity solutions that can use and leverage those email addresses, those phone numbers and otherwise, and to set those up. Now, if we look at, for example, the European market or Brazil or otherwise, where we have strict privacy laws, there is actually a bit of legal work that needs to happen also to utilize those solutions, and that can take additional time for them to be integrated. So it makes sense to start all of this early.
And also that bit of an unknown still in the market, that what exactly the media currency or industry currency is going to replace all of these things and help publishers and the buyers and ultimately the users themselves to have more relevant ads and better user experience.
Yeah, and then also the green and traffic shaping side. So, publishers are starting to understand how their website is impacting the carbon emissions across the internet. So I think that's an important thing. And I think they should also be looking at the carbon imprint, right? Like how their site is having a carbon imprint on the industry, what they can do to reduce that imprint, what they can also do to get some of the green media dollars that are coming from agencies directly. And, they should be evaluating things like traffic shaping to really make their whole overall auction more efficient. So I think these are three of the things that I would definitely recommend that they look at.
So from a publisher's perspective, unfortunately, at this point, it is still, from what we see on the data side, beneficial to have many different paths to the SSPs, to the DSPs, and otherwise to capture more of that ad spend. Of course, this is in no way ideal for the market, and it is taking a lot more money out from the overall ad spend, which is not necessarily growing because of it, to having more middleman in the mix. So it is kind of like a cat and mouse game where, as a publisher, the more paths I have, the more of the ad spend I can capture because I have more connections to the demand side than any other publisher has, although it's all the same connections, like the total amount of DSPs, the total amount of ad spend we are both tapping into, but due to me having more paths there, I have a higher probability of getting a bigger chunk of that ad spend. So when we look at it from the publisher's perspective, that when we are sending requests to an SSP through multiple paths, it can actually hoard our score with that SSP, because now what the SSP cares about is how much revenue can we make per, for example, million requests received. If as a publisher I'm sending 10 per opportunity, that number is very low compared to if I would only be sending 1. So what happens is that the SSP will decide to throw away the majority of the requests received, and they will run smaller auctions where less partners are being included because they see, okay, this traffic source doesn't look of that high quality. But then in return, for the users that are of high quality and where we still have good scores, having these multiple paths results in higher revenue. So the ideal scenario is for the publisher to really have, on one end, high amount of requests going out or multiple paths going out so that they can capture as much advertising spend as possible, but at the same time maintaining a very good profile in the sense of, hey, the number of requests going out are only going out when they're actually necessary. That they are requests CPM, which the SSP will see, which the DSP will see, and so on, is of good and high quality and not being hurt from sending out more requests. Now, in an ideal world, of course, the publisher would only be sending one request to one partner, and this partner would only be sending it to one partner again. And ideally, and hopefully, we will get to that point either through all of the carbon emission cleanup happening, all of the movement happening in terms of measuring the actual emissions. Right now, it's mostly based on estimates, as well as certain moves within the industry, for example, with the Topics API from Google, or the entire basically privacy sandbox, which is somewhat removing the existing infrastructure of how advertisements are being traded and making it all a bit more direct to the DSPs.